Brazil is very cheap. So if you come to Brazil and you have a look at some good companies, they are always on sale. It's a question of how do you pay and how do you run the business and how you deal with this management.
Let's continue talking to Eduardo Dyer. He's senior consultant at MacroSector and also an expert here in Brazil about agriculture sector. Meanwhile, this crisis, this terrible crisis here in the country, a huge move of merger and acquisitions in agriculture sector.
Yes, I think this is two phenomena we have to separate. One of them is completely international, and it comes 2 years ago. It starts in the crop protection business with a tender offer about Monsanto over Syngenta that comes and deliver a lot of different merger and acquisition at the crop protection market, at the pesticide market, international, and deeply affect Brazil, because Brazil is, as you know, 20% of the crop protection market is in Brazil. Because we are tropical, we run 2 seasons every year, so we have more diseases, weeds, and all different insects and problems being tropical. So this was the start of the merger and acquisition international. They don't succeed, but at the same moment and after that, DuPont and Dow announced a merger that will conclude this year or maybe at the beginning of the next year, 2018. Arista, a Japanese group, bought and became in a merge with Chemtura. Cheminova was bought by FMC. So those different companies are coming together, and a very amazing and different thing happens during that period. Once Monsanto doesn't buy Syngenta, the Chinese company called ChemChina comes to the game and bought Syngenta, that is by far the largest crop protection company and chemical company in this business all over the world. And then after that, they come and also bought a generic company that was in a very near period was Adama, Millenia, a company that was Jewish founders, and they became ChemChina also. So, and finally, the ChemChina come and bought a mining company of Anglo-American group of phosphate and niobio in Brazil. So this is a phenomenon, international. But why it happens in Brazil? By far, we are the 4th largest market in fertilizer business all over the world. That is quite important. And we are also, as I told before, the largest market in crop protection and pesticides. So that's the movement they are doing to come close to the market. And also the internal factor, despite the big crisis, and it was mainly political crisis and credibility crisis, the market itself, the economic, it's melting the relationship among foreign currency and local currency. So what I can say that till now, Brazil is very cheap. So if you come to Brazil and you have a look at some good companies, they are always on sale. It's a question of how do you pay and how do you run the business and how you deal with this management. But in fact, the farmers are looking for that with a different eyes that we are looking of the business itself. They are afraid because they have less options. And when they have less options, they think about higher prices of crop protection products or fertilizers or limestones or seed. In fact, this is part of the game, but it's never like that just because the bigger company, the bigger they are, the bigger investment they have to develop new products. The market itself is going from chemicals to biotechnology. In fact, people are putting a heavy money in biotechnology in seeds and also in biopesticides, biofertilizers that are not so heavy, but they also help us to control diseases and nutrition of vegetables.
Eduardo, you talked about the producers. They are not so happy with the situation. Do you think the government should have more control about business in this sector?
Let me put that way. In the Brazilian case, some of them, the largest companies are already multinationals. Let me use an example. Bayer, that in months ago makes a huge offer and bought Monsanto. Monsanto was at the first part of the game trying to buy Syngenta. At the end of the story, she was bought by Bayer. Bayer is in Brazil for more than 150 years. I don't think they will go out of the country or the government will be against them because they are not just crop protection company. They are mainly a chemical company with focus in pharmaceuticals. So they are taking care of the health, they are taking care of the chemistry at all. So the government is taking some care about the land in Brazil, about the management, and gives employee in Brazil. And I used to say that I'm completely open to the investment of the foreign countries in the Brazilian agribusiness regarding, first of all, we are tropical, we run more crops than, for instance, Europe, for instance, Canada. Canada right now is completely under snow, and we are running season, we are harvesting soybean. So that's the big difference, and that's the big attraction we have over Brazil. But again, you can come here, you can buy land, you can run the business, and you will never bankrupt and take the land to your country. It will be always Brazilian. So we have to have some rules, and we are developing that, but we are facing with a very nice and open arms to the foreign countries coming to Brazil.
Eduardo, how Trump's measures can impact our agribusiness here in Brazil?
It will impact a lot. I hope so. But I have to consider two things. First of all, I never imagined that the Trump candidate will be quite similar as the Trump president is doing right now. It's amazing, but as always, it's a kind of risk and opportunity. When I say risk, I'm talking about some kind of measure. But the trade between Brazil and U.S. are very soft, are very established, are very in balance. We do not have any dependence from us or them, but in fact, they are very strong in some products, soybean and corn, for instance, that we are also strong. They are big clients in coffee business and sugarcane also, ethanol also. But what I'm thinking about the risk is the risk of the non-tax barrier that can come to this market, and this could bother us. But for the other side, it's a huge opportunity, as I was talking about, because when Trump goes against China, or even and particularly going against the Trans-Pacific Partnership, it's a big opportunity to get inside those groups, to get closer to those clients, and make us a big supplier for those kind of countries. So I think, and a good example is when you are in the floor waiting for an elevator, and when he comes to your floor and he is completely overbooked and full, when someone gets out of this elevator is the only opportunity we have to get inside the elevator. We are thinking about this regarding the Trump policy, at least till now.
Eduardo, thank you so much for joining us here in Dukascopy TV.
It's a pleasure, and I am at your disposal and your disposal too.
Thank you. Luciane Miranda to Dukascopy TV.